So until we really know how to inspire, connect, and engage the youth, both in outreach and also just in general, it will be very hard to transition in the second most difficult stage of ISKCON. The first was when Srila Prabhupada left, and the second one is when all the Prabhupada disciples have left. There are so many complications that we need that training now before these Prabhupada disciples leave. So this is a big theme, which especially His Grace Manoram Prabhu and some of the other leading GBCs are very much working on now, at how to engage the next generation, especially those born in the movement.
Yeah, so Hare Krishna again. So yeah,
Krishna.
if you could kindly introduce yourself to the devotees, Prabhu. Yeah.
So my name is Sandipani Muni Krishna Das, and I took initiation from His Holiness Jayapataka Swami. And I grew up in the movement. We are from the community which is known as Bhaktivedanta Manor. Many of you know it. It's a very famous community. And attended the Gurukula there during my childhood, amongst also living in India and Africa for short periods of time, for a few years. And we had a lot of youth in our community, in Bhaktivedanta Manor, in our Gurukula. It's still going on to this day. So it's been going on for several decades. And I saw that there's two kind of directions to go in life. One is to really focus on one's career. Another one is to try and make some contribution to spread the movement. So I decided to first work on my material, preparation, material side of life. So when I was 18, I went to university and I studied information technology. And shortly after graduating, I realized that that is not the life which is for me, because we may be good at something, we may have a skill in something, but it doesn't mean it's our dharma. And ultimately, more than financial freedom and job security, job satisfaction, chasing all of these things, I decided that I feel like my dharma is to serve in the missionary capacity within our Hare Krishna movement, which I know, although most youth who grew up in the movement don't do it, I felt like that was my calling for many different reasons. And then I've been doing that now for the last 11 years. Originally, I was going to just try for 1 year. And then after 1 year, it became 2 years. And then every year, it keeps becoming sweeter and nicer. So that's the general kind of pattern which my life has been following.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll dig a bit deeper and find out more details as we go along with the questions. But just as we're speaking now, as I'm looking at you, I can't not see your father in your face. You have a very strong likeness. Yeah. So we'll just move on to our first question. Growing up in a devotee household and attending Gurukula at Bhaktivedanta Manor must have been rich with formative experiences. How did living in diverse places like the UK, India, Ethiopia, and the USA shape your understanding and approach to Krishna consciousness as a youth?
Very nice question, yes. So we can see that one of the kind of patterns in this world is you generally find people who travel a lot or people who experience the world a lot. They have a more broader, in general, they have a more broader appreciation, understanding, perspective, and approach to dealing with things, whether it be in the material sphere or the spiritual sphere. So after growing up, in many places as a youth, as a child, teenager, and being exposed to different cultures, languages, religions, levels of society, it really helped to give one some appreciation and some knowledge in that respect. And then not only that, but after finishing my education and traveling, because my main preaching service is including traveling, then I also have been traveling very thoroughly around the world, primarily with our Harinam Ruci team, and then also the last 2 years more as a freelance preacher, in the sense I go wherever I get invited as an individual. So I found that it's really helped to give one a more of appreciation from people from different cultures and more respect more tolerance, more kindness, and more empathy to people. When we just grow up in one paradigm, then we often become fixed on that. And then if someone has a slightly different way of practice, a slightly different style externally, whatever it may be, then our general tendency is to not be so welcoming, open-minded, or flexible to adjust according to them. But because of all of these experiences, I feel it's definitely helped me in my attempts at helping to share this Krishna consciousness movement, helping to spread it, because it makes one you kind of become almost like a chameleon in one sense, because you can go to Africa and mix with people in Africa and speak the way which they understand and deal with them the way they understand. You can go to Europe, the same thing. If you go to university, you know how to blend in with university people and speak in a more academic way. If you're with people in a slum and you're doing food for life and giving them books and magazines, you might speak to them in a different way. And then you know how to speak, according to culture as well. It's like we go to Latin America, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Taiwan, all so many different cultural backgrounds. So you learn how to blend in and click with everyone, because ultimately, the more you're able to connect with people, then the more connection, the more trust, and the more openness they will have to listen to you. So I feel like all of these things together, they've made a very it's helped me to grow in a way which makes my approach more accessible for others and easy to relate to.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just thinking, actually, today came across a post on, I think it was Instagram or something. This lady's giving various greetings, how to say hello in East Africa, how to say hello here and there and there. And I was just thinking how you like how you refer to it as being a chameleon. I was thinking in terms of coding. You did IT as well, so I was thinking that's almost like hacking the coding of conditioning. In the different places that you're able to become fluid in accessing the true or the core of the being, or the true core of the person, and in that way drop these gems of Krishna consciousness. But you now you said you finished your studies. This is like 2 years. How long?
No, a long time ago, in 2014.
2014.
I'm 31 now, so when I was 21, I graduated. Yeah.
You wouldn't say you are 31.
10 years already, yeah?
You wouldn't say.
Time moves fast in this world.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
The older you get, the faster it moves, eh?
It does, eh? Yeah.
Literally.
So now how have you managed to translate yourself into the realm of being a full-time preacher as a youth, looking at how difficult it is generally for most devotees who may not have a support structure to adapt and live a life like I'd say you are living now?
The nice thing in traveling and preaching is that you become comfortable in being always. It sounds funny, but you become comfortable in always being in unpredictable situations. You get used to always depending on Krishna's plan, because you cannot put, like, if you have a house and you have a car and you have a mortgage and you have a payment plan for your car, your life is very predictable, because you don't, even if you want to change, you don't really have you don't want to make the risk of changing job or changing where you live, because you have so many things set up already. But when you're a traveling preacher without a car, without a house, without too many material possessions, and you don't have a fixed income stream, you just get whatever Krishna gives you by his mercy, then you become comfortable in just going with the flow. But it takes time to get used to. So the first time I joined our Harinam Ruci team, it was in 2014, just a few months after finishing university. So our leader of our team, he's called Vishnu Jan. You must have met him. They come to South Africa every year. So Harinam Ananda, he's always in Joburg. So and Savya Sachi, all of these amazing devotees. So he said to us, because I said, I want to join the Harinam Ruci team. This is my dream. I want to travel and do Harinam, all of this. He said, yeah, you're welcome. I said, but the only thing is I don't have money. I don't know how I'm going to pay for all these flights, etc. He says, oh, don't worry. Just come with us to New York. Just collect for your ticket to New York. And from there, Krishna will send. Don't worry. And then he just changed the subject. And it's a bit like if you ask someone, like, oh, what time did you, like, what day did you arrive to Joburg? They said, oh, I arrived yesterday. And then you continue on with the next topic, right? That's like
Yeah. Yeah.
something very casual. But it seems like something like that is not something casual. Like, how are you going to survive for the next 1 year with no money and keep flying around the world every couple of weeks? And he said, don't worry, Krishna will send. So I was thinking that that's like kind of a very short answer, which I was looking for more information. Like, this is the plan, you do this, this is the contact, then you make this budget, and then you make this arrangement. Nothing like that, just Krishna will send. So I was thinking, wow, that's a bit, kind of too quick. I thought it would be something, the answer will be a little bit longer. But after the weeks went by and months went by, now it's been 11 years. We traveled, our team has been to 108 countries, all of our team in general. So we got to the point that we realized that, yeah, we don't have any plan, because I don't know where all of these flights have come from, all of these arrangements have come from. I look back at my calendar, I think we did so much in the last 1 year, but I don't even know how. It just happens. So you have to kind of be very secure that Krishna will arrange everything and Krishna has a plan, and just keep doing your service. And then the next arrangement will come, the next plan will come, the next invitation will come, like that. So it's very good because it helps to give you faith that Krishna is providing. When you take risk, there's a very nice quote by Prabhupada, says that there's taking risk in the spreading of Krishna consciousness is very important, it must be done, because then we learn how to depend on Krishna.
You become surrendered.
Yeah, it helps you to surrender more. I don't think I'm still very surrendered, but at least definitely closer than I was 10 years ago.
You're turning the volume up on it. Yeah. That kind of takes us to our next question, which speaks on inspiration and mentorship. In your bio, you've spoken about the inspiration you drew from His Grace Tribhuvanath Prabhu and the role of your spiritual master, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami, in guiding your spiritual journey. Can you share any specific instructions or moments with them that significantly influenced your path, particularly your commitment to preaching?
Very nice. Yeah. So one of the first Shiksha gurus, for me was my parents, because they obviously also devotee, they're disciples of His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, and they also inspired to preach. So when I was younger, my father used to talk about preaching a lot, and I realized its importance. But then obviously as a teenager, you become more attracted to other things, music, movies, games, computer game, all of these things. And then after a short time, when I realized that doesn't bring much happiness, it helps you to waste your time, because you have a good time, but you waste your time, and then you leave what you're doing and you're wondering, there wasn't any benefit to me. So then after becoming more serious spiritually, I had a dream, and His Grace Tribhuvanath Prabhu appeared in the dream. Actually, it was, so some of you know, he had an album which was made. It was a live album called Hare Krishna Festivals with Tribhuvanatha Prabhu. And in that album, those tracks are very famous. They're maybe not in the modern world, modern ISKCON, because obviously it's been 2 decades since he passed. But especially in the early 2000s, that was a very common album everyone in ISKCON was listening to. And I was listening to his Guru Puja, and then I went to sleep. And then I had a dream about him. Because Guru Puja, if you listen to that recording, he's extremely, extremely fired up. He's like singing and also almost screaming in ecstasy. So it's a very full of a transcendental emotion, his singing. So he had such a power in singing that sometimes he will just do a kirtan, one kirtan or one class, and at the end of the kirtan or class, people would come up to him and say, wow, I love your movement. I want to join. How do I join? I know many people. I know about 6, 7 personally, people who they went to one of his programs, and at the end of the program that day they joined. There's many in Africa also, in East Africa. So I had a dream about him, and he was leading that Guru Puja in Nairobi temple. I don't know if you've been in Kenya.
No.
And it was a very impactful dream. And I felt like from that next day, I never forgot the dream. And from that next day, I had started developing more and more connection to him and inspiration from him. In real life, I actually was a child when he was still on the planet. So I only saw him maybe, I don't know how many times. I may have seen him even 50 times. But just memories, vague memories, only a few times I have. Few vague memories at the temple, Bhaktivedanta Manor. I remember also he came to the Gurukula. He gave a talk to us in the Gurukula. But obviously, 7, 8, 9 years old, how much can you remember? And then His Holiness Jayapadaka Swami, I got connected to him later than to Gurukula Prabhu, few 3, 4 years later, personally. Obviously, he always was coming to the UK since I was a child, so I've seen him every year probably my whole life. But in terms of more of a personal relationship, it started later on when I started going to Mayapur and seeing his preaching that he does in India, also around the world, but especially because Mayapur is his base. So seeing the preaching that he does and his emphasis and mood of preaching. And I saw that I was very much inspired by Tirunatha Prabhu, who was a very empowered exponent of the Krishna Consciousness movement, very powerful proponent of Krishna Consciousness. So I also found that His Holiness Jayapadaka Swami, he was one of the most unparalleled devotees who are spreading the Krishna Consciousness movement. And then later also when I took initiation, he directly told all of us, especially to emphasize preaching. And then sometime in Mayapur, if I ask a question, then he also gives blessings for preaching and things like that. So definitely from both of them.
I have a brief memory, actually, an encounter with your Guru Maharaj. I was in the Brahmachari ashram in Lenasia. I don't know if you passed by there when you were here in Johannesburg.
Yeah, we stayed there actually. That was the temple we were staying in. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. So, well, now they don't really have much of an ashram there, but I remember I bumped into Maharaj in the passageway at the bottom by the bathroom, and he wanted to use the bathroom, and he's like, "Stand straight," stood straight like this, and he took his garland, put it on me, and it was like so long, it was almost touching my feet, and it was like, wow. He's like, "Don't move."
Yeah.
He came out, took the garland, and he went off, and I was like, wow, pretty interesting. Yeah. I think this mood of preaching, there's quite a lot to talk about in it, and also speaking to what you've already shared about being dynamic and adaptable. But we'll go into that as we go along. Our third question also goes back a bit about Harinam Ruci. Your years with Harinam Ruci, with the Harinam Ruci team, saw you travel to nearly 100 countries. There are some. Oh, my eyes are going boggly. Sorry, Prabhu. Your years with the Harinam Ruci team saw you travel to nearly 100 countries. What are some key insights or unforgettable experiences from these travels that shaped your vision for Krishna consciousness on a global scale?
Wonderful question. So yes, we have a team, Harinam Ruci. So many of you may know it, led by His Grace Vishnu Jana Prabhu. And we have many, not always, but sometimes we have sub teams, like led by Harinam Ananda Prabhu. Also with Vicharu Prabhu, we have another subgroup. But the main group is always under Vishnu Jana Prabhu, who is our main leader. And he always emphasized many points because he is a very realized devotee. So he shared some points like always depending on Krishna, not worrying about our material necessities. Just like all of us have a laptop, all of us have a phone, all of us have traveled, we've never gone hungry, we've never had to sleep on the street. Generally, we actually get luxurious prasadam because, devotees obviously kitchen religion. So we always eat well and we always have a nice comfortable spot to sleep on the floor. So we never have to worry about anything, but we only worry because we think we're in control of the situation. Whether you're a grihastha or whether you're in a brahmachari ashram, even as a grihastha, we know that even we get an amazing job, Providence itself has given us the job. Because you can apply for so many jobs, but there's no guarantee you're going to get it. So ultimately, everything is the jurisdiction of God. And we have some lila that we think that, we're controlling our life. But the more we develop this realization, then the more peace we get, because then the more we know we're always protected. It's like someone who is wealthy, from a wealthy family, even if they're not directly with their father, they always know if there's any emergency, then my parents can, send me money, cover my medical bill, get me emergency flight home, whatever happens. So in the same way, the more faith we have in the holy name and in Krishna, then the more we become satisfied and stable and secure in our life, and the less we have to worry. So that's one of the great lessons he taught us. Another great lesson is It's a very simple sutra, right? Like you have Vedanta Sutra, Yoga Sutra. So this is one of the Harinam Ruci Sutras. That another of our members, he always used to say this sutra, that be Krishna conscious and spread Krishna consciousness. That's very simple. That's the essence of a life of, especially somebody who is full time in the movement, especially if they're in a more monastic order, or at least if they're in a full time position within the movement. That the main thing in our life is to be Krishna conscious and to spread Krishna consciousness. This is the main thing. So this was, one of the great lessons we always learn. So our program was very simple. You just wake up every day, attend full morning program. So you do your personal care, be Krishna conscious. And then after, midday or whenever you go out, then the second half of the day, spread Krishna consciousness. And then you come home, sleep, and do it all again the next day. So this kind of life is very nice because it's very simple. And although you're traveling, there is a schedule, there is also a routine aspect to it. Obviously, you may have a different location, but the same schedule is the same 7 days a week. There's no holiday. Just 7 days a week, you do the same program. So because of that, we also learn how to speak to people and how to present Krishna consciousness. Because many times in this world, we find that the problem is not what we are presenting, because there's nothing wrong with Krishna consciousness. Actually, there's everything right with it. But many people do not accept it because we do not know how to present it in a way which is digestible to them and in a way which is satisfying to them. And of course, even in business, when you have a product you present, half of the value which they're taking is from you as an individual and half is from the product itself. So although generally we think that we can just present it in any way, it's presentation and also the content what we're giving is very important. So in our team, obviously, when you distribute books, when you give lectures, when you do Harinam, then you're always dealing with people and learning how to inspire, present things to them and give them something of value. So it helps to reinforce yourself that this thing is of great value and of great importance. And you also over time, you get more and more experience in how to present something nicely, something of value nicely. It's like you can sell a gold in a shop, but the shop is also important. The location of the shop, the presentation of the shop, even the lighting, even the smiles on the face of the staff, the way the staff are dressed, even though gold is always gold, right? But still, people want that experience that when you go somewhere, you take it. So in the same way, we learn how to be presentable and how to be accessible and how to be friendly and kind.
How to
both
be
from
personable.
our practice, yes, how to practice all of these qualities and then how to share it with others.
Yeah, that's another thing that has been kind of circulating conversations that I've been in. Like most people don't really care about what it is but they want to see how you treat each other or treat the next other, right? Yeah, this kind of takes us to our next question, which also extends to your traveling experiences and expeditions, if not adventures. You've recently embarked on a pioneering trip across Africa, visiting countries like South Africa, Lesotho, Eswatini, Mozambique, Zambia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. What inspired this journey, and what have been some of the most memorable experiences or challenges you've encountered so far? How do these experiences inform your vision for spreading Krishna consciousness across the continent, including the idea of a future African bus tour? My mind is like racing. I've got because this is something close to my heart. But anyway, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So our Harinam Ruci team, as I mentioned, we sometimes have one group, sometimes we have different teams running at the same time. So His Grace Vicharu Prabhu, he's actually in preparing to take, not on the list, but he's preparing to enter the list for sannyas. So he's a very senior devotee. He was the personal servant of His Holiness Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Srila Gurudev. And he was also serving other gurus like Satsuru Maharaj and different people. So he's a very nice devotee, very strict devotee and a sweet devotee. And he's also a very good lecturer, kirtaniya, etc. So he was in our Harinam Ruci team in the first couple of years, but he has a lot of health issues because he has digestive issues, different health issues. So the speed of Harinam Ruci is that generally every week we're traveling, and he's obviously he was the oldest in the group. So His Holiness Srila Kadambakanana Swami Maharaj told him that it's better for you, you travel as an individual Vanaprastha. He's like, took Vanaprastha, put the saffron robes. He said, it's better that you travel independently, because obviously he's more of a lecturer also. He does Harinam, of course, a lot, and book distribution, but he's one of the great things, he knows how to lecture and cultivate people, cultivate relationships. So Kadamba Maharaj told him that yes, you can do your own independent, traveling. Generally, people of that age, they're independently traveling. So teams are generally for younger age groups, who can do the austerities of being in a big team, and So sometimes once a year I travel with him for a couple of months. And one year we went all the way from Mexico to Costa Rica. So we started in Mexico, we went to Guatemala, then we went to El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica, El Salvador. So we went to all of these countries, and we did a lot of programs, yoga program, television, radio, kirtan, Harinam. We went to some yoga retreats, so many things we did. One year he gave me a list of 8 cities in Colombia. He was living in Colombia with Harinam Goranga Prabhu, who's the temple president there in Bogota. So he gave me a list of 8 cities. He says, please, can you arrange, I want to do a trip with you, all of these 8 cities, and do a preaching tour. So we did that one year. One year he sent me a list of 10 countries, and he says, I want to cover with you all of these countries in the Caribbean. So then we did like Trinidad, Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana. Then we went to Barbados, St. Lucia, Martinique, Dominica, and one more, I forget the name. So we went to different islands like that. So this year we were going to meet. Generally we meet around springtime. And he says, this year we will do Africa, because he was in Mauritius at the time. He spent about 6 months in Mauritius. One of his greatest skills is preaching to the Indian community, because obviously he comes from an Indian Fijian background. So he very much enjoys to give class in Hindi, speak on Krishna Lila, Ram Lila, etc. So he was doing a huge trip and huge tour in Mauritius. He did almost maybe 50 programs. And he said, once you come here, we will do a couple of weeks here, and then we want to travel within Africa. So then I started planning that trip. But we saw most of the world travel is a little bit cheaper. Africa is quite expensive sometimes, not always, but can be very expensive, because obviously people are on a lower income. So there is less people flying. So then the cost of flying goes up. So we decided that we would like to cover some new countries. So we decided that we will base ourselves in Johannesburg itself, and from there use it as a satellite to visit countries, and then come back for a few days, Johannesburg, and then go to another country, come back. So we contacted the different temples in Johannesburg, and Indonesia has a very nice temple, quite a big temple, and good location, easy to get to, big ashram, nice, beautiful deities. And the temple president is very kind. So he immediately says, yes, you can stay with us. We'll host you. We'll support whatever you need. And different devotees there. I forget all the names, but many, many sweet devotees in the ashram, they used to take care of us. And they were very, very kind. So we decided that we're going to basically do a tour of just countries which are bordering South Africa, because then it's easy. Because we don't have money. I've never had a full-time job. Vicharu hasn't worked since he took Vanaprastha. So both of us, we don't have money, but we know, even though this tour might cost us $3,000-4,000 each, the money will come. So we arrived in Mauritius with no money, and we left after 2 months doing a nice preaching tour in Africa, and we did everything. We covered everything. Krishna arranged. So even my flight to Mauritius, I didn't pay. Somebody just randomly said, I want to cover your ticket. So they just, even I didn't have to ask anyone, just somebody offered. So I didn't even think this person would offer. So we decided to cover, Eswatini is just only a few hours drive from Joburg. So it's very easy to get to. Lesotho is also not far. And then obviously Mozambique is also, you can drive. But we actually flew, but you can drive. And then obviously Botswana, Zambia is also next door. So it's easy to get to. And then I think Zimbabwe is one country in between, right?
Yeah, it is, but it also shares a border with South Africa.
Yeah. So we also went to Zimbabwe like that. So the amazing thing is there's a lot of devotees in that region, especially in Johannesburg, especially. So we started in Johannesburg, and then I forget the order we went, but the temple presidents of Botswana and Zambia, they invited us because generally our team is known. So they immediately said, yeah, we would like to invite you. We can arrange programs, harinams, book distribution, seminar, book distribution, practical experience for the devotees. We can arrange, school program and the orphanage program, so many things, food for life. So in Zambia and Botswana, they arranged a lot of nice programs and they took very good care of us. And we met a lot of amazing people. And we saw that book distribution in Africa is a very unique mix because I've distributed books almost in 100 countries around the world in different languages. I can distribute a book in about 12 different languages. So every single place is different. When I went to Japan as a younger person, we were going every year, our Harinam team. They still go. So you have to really be very soft and very gentle and very humble, a lot of bowing like this. And you have to speak their language. You can't do books in English in Japan. So you have to learn Genki desu ka, watashi wa bousande, yoga no sensei, all of this. And the same thing, Korea also. Koreans are a little bit more open, but they're a bit shy. And then Chinese, very complicated to stop them, right? They're not easy because they're always in a rush, Chinese people. They're very much in that business, running. And then, you go to South America, it's more about being sweet and being soft and being very jolly and energetic like that. Because Latin American people are very soft and they have a lot of sentiment, a lot of emotion. So in Japan, they may be more cold, they may be a bit more nervous to stop. In South America, the more sweet and energetic you are, then the more they stop. The more familiar you are with them. Whereas in other parts of Asia, like in East Asia, Japan, Korea, etc., Taiwan, you may have to be more formal and not so close, not so familiar, more respectful and formal like that. Then Europe is kind of somewhere in between, America somewhere in between like that. What we notice in Africa is people are extremely friendly. They're very happy to meet, especially if you're a foreigner, they're extremely friendly, extremely happy to meet you. But the difficulty they have, obviously, because the way modern capitalism works, that unfortunately Africa has been dealt the shorthand, although they have better resources than Europe and the US in many ways. Most of the natural resources which Europeans and Americans consume comes from Africa. Although Africa is one of the richest places in the world, because of the way capitalism works, they've been dealt the shorthand. So most people are quite poor. So for them to ask for $5, $10, $20, it's not easy, including the conversion rate as well, because each country has their own, like you have rand, each country has their own currency. So when you convert the book value into the local currency, it's even harder for them to pay. So the challenge in Africa is not stopping people, is not convincing them to take. The challenge there is to get donation. So luckily, especially in South Africa, a lot of people sponsor books, and Mauritius also, they sponsored books. So that way, if you have people who help to sponsor books, then you can just give it for any small coins or just give it as a gift to the people. So we had to work around. We never really experienced that before because most of the world, they have enough income to give. Even in India, you can always ask because the book price is so cheap because they print locally that if a small book costs 10 cents, 10 rupees, even a poor person can give 10 rupees. But obviously in Africa, the books are imported and then you have the importation fee, then the foreign exchange fee. So by the time you evaluate the book, it's not so cheap for them. So luckily, we had some people who also donated books. But it was very, very sweet. And what we found in Africa is people are ready to talk about God. Most of the world, people are not very interested to talk about God. Europeans and Americans, they're allergic to the word God generally, especially Europeans. Americans, not as much, but especially Europeans. Also Japan, you don't talk about God. I don't even know the word for God in Japanese. I just know the word for soul. Meso is meditation, like that. So you can speak so many words, but you don't want to talk about God so much. But in Africa, you can very much directly speak the philosophy. People are ready. They're very God-fearing. So that was a very beautiful thing. And then after that, we went to Botswana, Zambia. Zimbabwe was amazing. Zimbabwe, we don't have any ISKCON, but we made some friends. I have a friend from the UK. He's called Jagannath Kirtanananda. He's actually my godbrother. So he has family who are not ISKCON devotee or Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but generally Gujaratis are Vaishnavas, strict Vaishnavas. Generally, you find the most vegetarians is in Gujarat, Bihar, UP, like that. So there's a lot of Gujaratis in Africa because of the British history with Africa, and they're quite wealthy. So we went to Zimbabwe and we were hosted by some very beautiful, kind and cultured Gujarati families who are Krishna Bhaktas. They're Krishna Vaishnavas, pure vegetarians since many generations. So they follow the same lifestyle as devotees, but the theological clarity may not be the same as ours. But basically, they're Vaishnavas. So they hosted us and they organized some nice programs for us. But our mission was not just to do programs for Indians, because obviously we can do that in India. But our program was to focus on local people. So we also told them we want to focus on local people. So they arranged for us nice harinams, nice opportunity to distribute prasadam. Because Indians, they may not always know how to mix with the local Africans, but they're always willing to sponsor things. So we arranged them to help sponsor prasadam, different things. So that way we could do these kind of programs. And what we found in especially Zimbabwe, the response to the Harinam was very, very amazing. People were very enthusiastic because they don't know devotees yet. And our style, Vicharu Prabhu and myself, and we were traveling with another boy, he's called Ramai from Sweden. He's just young, around 20 years old. He's a very tall, 6 foot something, brahmachari in white, white skinned. So it was quite a shock for Africans, to see, oh, I thought Hare Krishna is from India, but there's even Westerners following this. There's even people who look African following it. So then they know that this is an international movement. It's not just for Indians. So I know in Joburg, obviously, majority is Indian community, but also in Joburg, we have people from white background, from black background, Filipino, Asian, Chinese, whatever it is. So this is a movement for everyone, not just for people who are natively from India. So we did such a nice, we did amazing Harinam. So many people came, big crowds, so many questions. Zimbabwe, actually, they had US dollars, so they could give $1 for the book. So at least they could give something. Other countries generally were giving almost free. And they could give a little bit more. And we also found that they're very, very philosophical because Zimbabwe has a very high literacy rate, I think maybe the highest or one of the highest in Africa. So, I mean, that's what they told me when I was there. So it must be.
Yeah.
And,
Zimbabwe actually, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, Zimbabwe used to be the bread basket for Southern Africa. And interestingly, the history around the Hare Krishna movement, there was a center in Harare. His Holiness Bhaktivinoda Singha Swami did some preaching there. But it would be interesting to hear about. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, no problem. So, they speak English also. Because of the British history there, the school system is kind of similar to the British one, from what I've heard. So we did a lot of Harinams, and what we found is that people are so friendly that we did one Harinam, and there was one lady with a baby, and she was following the Harinam for 2 hours, just standing, watching, smiling, singing along. We do interactive Harinam. Our Harinam Ruci team is famous for that, which is based on Prabhupada's style of preaching that he was doing in Australia and Melbourne, where he would get people in the school to say 2 words, and then they repeat, and then you sing another 2 words, they repeat. So we learned that from Srila Prabhupada himself. That's the way Prabhupada was teaching in Australia to the children how to chant. So we do that on Harinam. And because if you do the whole Mahamantra, if you notice, people actually, unless they've heard it for like a good half an hour, they can't really sing the whole 16 words. It's not easy. Yeah. But if you make them sing 2 words at a time, if they do that 5 or 6 times, that way it's very quick. They can learn the mantra very quickly. So there was one lady, she was following us, and she was just, you could see a lot of people were just coming up to us, and we would even stop the Harinam because we were 3 people and speak to people. And there was one big group of young men, they also stopped. And then especially this lady, she was the only one that stayed the whole Harinam. So then we started speaking to her. And what I like about Africa is you can present the philosophy very, very straightforwardly, directly, and in a very uncompromising way. Just like because Africans are happy to hear the truth about God, because that's the way. They're already strict Christians, many of them. So we presented the philosophy very strongly to her, very convincingly and logically, but also very strongly. And basically, she's become like a devotee now, just from attending one Harinam. So it was quite amazing. I'm still in touch because our style on Harinam Ruci is that we distribute books and we do Harinam. And then those who are interested, we give them our business card. And then they can message us or email us. And we also give social media. So I have maybe 100 people from our Africa trip on my social media. So then they can watch videos, Krishna Conscious video, kirtan videos. So yeah, we're on touch. She has the Facebook, and then many people also write to me on WhatsApp. So she started chanting now, and she has a child also. So now hopefully the child will become devotee. And then we also did Mozambique. Mozambique was very nice, and the people were very, very kind. We were originally told by the authorities that if you go to Mozambique, it will be very difficult because they have some communist influence, etc. And it's not very easy to preach there, etc. But we found it to be 100% the contrary. Even the police themselves, they took books from us, and they were very happy that we were there. Government didn't mind. We gave out a lot of books. We always had a big crowd in Mozambique. We will stand on a corner and chant. And Mozambique was just two of us because Vicharu couldn't get the visa. So it was just two of us, me and Ramai. So we were just standing on the street corner, and you'd have a big crowd of 10, 20, sometime up to 30 people watching.
You in Maputo?
In Maputo, yeah.
Okay.
And we were hosted by a friend of a friend there. He's one of the leading people in the medical industry of Mozambique. Very, very wealthy man. He was very kind as well to us. And extremely personal person, very personal, like very much down to the small details, taking care nicely. He was also from Indian background. So he was busy with work, but he said, you go and do your Hare Krishna stuff on the street, and I will be busy in the hospital. So we had amazing response. And from there, I met one friend, and he was a school teacher. And he was following the Harinam the whole time. And then he took a couple of books, and then we exchanged phone number. I'm also in touch with him, and he's also learning more and more about Krishna consciousness. And then we went to Eswatini as well, and Lesotho. So the same thing.
Before Eswatini, there's a devotee in Maputo, actually, Teshito Prabhu. He's an artist musician. He travels up and down between Durban or South African yatras in general, participating in most of these yatras. Actually, he's been saying that he's alone there. Maybe you could link him up with this friend of yours.
I think they already know each other because we were in touch with him, but we were only there for 4 days in Mozambique, so we didn't get to meet him. But I think, they're connected already.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, the only thing is difficult in Mozambique and Zimbabwe, we don't actually have a temple. So, but people are very open. Actually, they offered us, in Mozambique, they offered us land. In Zimbabwe, 2 places they offered us land, and also in Swaziland they offered us. But the thing is, this is the problem in ISKCON, is that we have so many people happy to work 9 to 5, but very hard to find somebody who's happy to actually run a project for Prabhupada. That's very hard to find. They offered us, but I said, I would do it, but I can't expand into 6 bodies. So, so it's very difficult to find leaders. Vicharu Prabhu and I, we offered a temple in St. Lucia. The Mataji said, she passed away now, unfortunately. Very big temple in St. Lucia, which is an island in the Caribbean. She said that I'm getting old. She had swollen legs. She had a adopted daughter, but she doesn't really speak English that well, and she wasn't really trained devotee. She was just devotee, but not like trained to lead a project. So they offered to Vicharu Prabhu and I. They said, I want to donate this to you because the leadership in the movement, nobody wants to help me. So, and they're not really, no one comes here. So she says, I want to offer this to you. But of course, we were not moved. We didn't visit there to move and run the temple. But we said, if we find someone, we'll let you know. But it's very hard to find leaders. Very hard. So many places people are ready to receive the Hare Krishna movement. The only obstacle sometimes in spreading our movement is our own minds. It's our own ability to be willing to commit to something. So that's what we found in these different places in Africa. So we try to connect them all with local devotees, whoever is interested in local African preaching. And that way, if anyone wants to do it, if anyone watches this and they're interested, you can message me.
Definitely, yeah. Just speaking towards the first few points that you shared around African or preaching in Africa, or what we locally call African preaching, where the translation of the situation of incomplete capitalism and how it affects African people in general, and then the dynamics that then come into trying to access African communities and give them Krishna consciousness in a way that's sustainable. We've been talking about something around preaching through empowerment, how to bypass this poverty, weaponized poverty situation, which is a whole other conversation on its own. But that also, in a sense, went towards how then to traverse the terrain and what you'd need. I got excited when my editor shared that here's this devotee, he wants to do a bus tour in Africa and all of this, and then talking to Krishna Prabhu from Australia, who went through a whole process of building what he calls a rig to go to different, music festivals, distributing prasadam and such. Well, what are your ideas around something like that? I know you said it's something that's in the early stages, but what did you have in mind in something, in manifesting or doing something like that?
This is actually a topic we didn't cover much, which is bus tours. So although Harinam Ruci was my main program, I'm also a member of ISKCON Youth Ministry, which is led by His Grace Manoram Prabhu, who is also the GBC for Youth Ministry. It's not an official GBC position, but it's a position which is created by the GBC for the youth, for facilitating youth. And so every year I've been helping him with bus tours. So obviously I've helped on US, Mexico, Caribbean, and Europe, but we wanted to do something in Africa. It's still in the early stages because, as you know, Africa, it's difficult because obviously funding is not as much. Obviously, generally, South Africa is lucky because it has a little bit, people are a little bit more wealthy, but in general, in Africa, it's not easy to get money.
It's a joke, actually. Sorry, I'm saying there's a joke that South Africa is not so Africa. It's like the European or
kind of like Europe, yeah.
Yeah.
Like when we landed in Johannesburg, we felt like we were in Europe.
Yeah.
So we're just looking at that idea because a lot of youth would be interested. Of course, there is also a security issue and also malaria, these kind of things. That's why it's very early stages. It's a lot more complicated than organizing a tour in Europe. There's a lot more variable. But what we found in these particular countries is basically Johannesburg is one of the best places to fly to in Africa. It's one of the main airports in the whole of Africa. Africa for aviation is not a very easy continent to get around, very expensive. And there are some hubs, like South Africa being such a wealthy country, Durban, Joburg. You can fly from Europe to Joburg very cheap, couple £100, $300. But if you want to fly from London to, for instance, to Côte d'Ivoire, it might be very expensive, or maybe to Democratic to Kinshasa or something. But Johannesburg is a very accessible place. You can fly directly from the US, probably. I'm not sure exactly directly, but you can fly cheaply from the US. You can fly from India. You can fly from Europe. Johannesburg generally has flights to most places in Africa. So our idea is we could do a bus tour starting in Joburg. And then obviously there are many countries nearby. You have Lesotho, Eswatini, Mozambique. It's all only a few hours drive, so you don't have to worry about flying. And that way it can be a proper bus tour, because as soon as you have to fly, it gets much more complicated. Of course, there can be safety issues. Eswatini is very safe, Lesotho is very safe. But some other countries, at nighttime, etc., you have to figure out driving, accommodation, etc. But that's our idea, is that we do a bus tour starting out of Johannesburg. And what is powerful about the bus tour is it inspires youth, which is what we call in-reach. Generally, we have what is outreach, which is what we call preaching. And we have in-reach, which is preaching to the young people who grew up in the movement but don't have the inspiration to really take it up seriously yet. But by giving them retreats, by giving them events, by giving them bus tours where they meet like-minded people and they get association with senior devotees and senior leaders, gurus, etc., then that inspiration and that relationship building can start. So bus tours are very good because they're both outreach and they're also in-reach simultaneously. There's no other program which can do that so effectively. So they've been going on. Tribhunath Prabhu himself did some of the original bus tours, proto bus tours, you can say, in the early 90s in the UK. So that's something we're looking at with Manoram Prabhu and some other devotees. We have a list of certain people that are interested. But obviously, there's different things. Funding is number one, getting a good bus, etc. And then where to stay is not so hard because we've already traveled to those locations. Cost of things is not very expensive in Africa. Food is very cheap. It's just that certain logistics have to be planned, and then security as well has to be planned very carefully. But it will be very nice, and it will be very inspiring to local African devotees too, to have so many foreign people, maybe 30 people from around the world to visit. And we can arrange also auditorium programs, university programs. We generally on Vastos do a cultural program, which is a talk, a Bharatanatyam dance, a drama, and a very sweet kirtan. So we do all of that, and then we give prasadam at the end. So this is our idea.
I was just thinking it's pretty cool to just speak these things out, because this is something that has been a conversation, an ongoing conversation, particularly, like I said earlier, being at a center where we're involved with university preaching. We were just talking about how cultural exchange programs or student exchange programs within the ISKCON sphere or infrastructure of things could be very inspiring and developmental for devotees in their devotional lives. But yeah, having given some thought in my own right to this, the infrastructure is there. Botswana particularly, I'm from Botswana, by the way, but I just live here. Botswana particularly, the infrastructure has been built around mining infrastructure, but largely schooling infrastructure. The education infrastructure is very developed. They've got like secondary schools, the roads are developed. So yeah, it's something that I could run my mouth about for days. But yeah, just for the sake of time, we can move on to our next question, so that we could cover some more ground, which speaks as well to youth ministry and involvement. As a member of ISKCON Youth Ministry, you've been involved in organizing bus tours and retreats for young devotees in the US and Europe. How has working with the youth influenced your approach to preaching and your vision for engaging the next generation in ISKCON and Africa at that?
Very nice question. So this is a very unique period in ISKCON history. The first very difficult and unique thing was when Srila Prabhupada himself left the planet, because obviously the whole of ISKCON was used to working directly under Prabhupada, getting direction, correction, guidance, solutions to situations very easily and quickly by directly asking him. And then now that he's left our vision, we cannot directly ask unless we're on a very high level, of course. So Prabhupada has said that, okay, now is the time that all of you take charge and you have to make decisions yourself. Otherwise we won't grow, right? So, and the Prabhupada disciples have done it pretty well. Of course, so many hiccups in the movement, being Kali Yuga, we cannot avoid it. But it's done very relatively well, unprecedentedly well, because it's the only Gaudiya Vaishnava, large-scale Gaudiya Vaishnava movement which has survived this long, like institution. Even the Gaudiya Mat itself split straight away after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left. Although now actually they're becoming, they're kind of reunifying in terms of morale and energy, some of them. But in terms of institutional structure and, ownership, it's not unified. So ISKCON has still done it quite well, but of course, one of the main issues now is that many of the Prabhupada disciples are in their late 60s, early 70s, even in the 80s, like His Holiness Satsvarup Das Goswami, many others. So because of Trivikram Maharaj, so many different elderly sannyasis. So it's very difficult now because they want to kind of retire a little bit from material managerial duties and focus more on their sadhana, on their bhajan, on the internal cultivation of Krishna consciousness. So there is a kind of need now for the next generation to take over. But I find that it's not going as smoothly as it should go. There's still, in many places, because obviously I've traveled around the world, been to maybe 100 something ISKCON temples out of the 600 that there are, maybe like 150 of them. So what we have found is that we need to work more. Luckily, His Grace Manoram Prabhu is also working on this. And some of the GBCs are, some not as much, but some of them are as well. But it's something which is very important, because if you study our movement in the West, it hasn't really grown much in Western outreach since the Zonal Acharya times. It hasn't really grown that much in terms of local Western outreach. Like the UK is 99% Indians, mainly Gujaratis. If you go anywhere in Europe, 70-80% of new devotees are Indians, 10-15% from Ukraine or Russia, and then 1-2% are local people. Same thing in the US. So one reason is because we have a lot of youth who actually would be the best at spreading the movement to the local indigenous population. but they're not really being given the right training or the right inspiration or the right positions in order to execute and use those skills. So in the UK, we have a lot of youth who grew up in the movement who are from Western backgrounds, and even with Indian bodies itself. But if you grow up in a country, even with the Indian body, you have access to both cultures. So many of those youth now, they started projects which are going very well and they're doing very successfully. Like in England, we have Studio 108. We have my friend Radhika Ranjana. Now he's online. He put his name as Radhika Das to make it simple. So he is attracting 90% local indigenous British people. Studio 108 also attracting the people of Western audience, etc. So a lot of these projects are run by second generation youth, and these kind of projects inspire second generation youth. It's very difficult to inspire the next generation when the current generation is not really growing, like the movement is not growing. But when you have a project which is very dynamic, exciting, and so many new people are coming, if you grew up in the movement and you've always been embarrassed, like I'm a Hare Krishna, but it's not seen as cool. At school, people made fun of us because, we maybe upset people on the street by the weird ways we did, sticker selling, record selling, or even book selling, but using funny lines. We're also doing Harinam, but kind of in a way which puts people off. So many places you go, especially in the West, they say, oh, Hare Krishna, there's those weird people on the street. So as a child, when you're at school and you get told that, then you start to become more and more shy about it and less inspired to practice because you don't really. But when you see there's young people running a project which is attracting local population and it's seen as cool and people are becoming devotees, when the second generation see that the preaching is going well and then you engage them in it, then it increases and exponentially the power and the potential, both for the movement and also for their spiritual life. That's what inspired me. People like Srila Prabhupada, that they will go in a university, give a 20-minute talk, and on the same day, 3 people join the ashram. So you see something like that, and you become convinced that, yes, this is a serious movement. So until we really know how to inspire, connect, and engage the youth, both in outreach and also just in general, it will be very hard to transition in the second most difficult stage of ISKCON. The first was when Srila Prabhupada left. And the second one is when all the Prabhupada disciples have left. And then we're left alone without having direct experience of Srila Prabhupada, how to continue the movement. Will we compromise the standards? Will we not present things in the right way? Will we misunderstand any of the philosophy? Will we not keep the deity worship as Prabhupada intended? So many things. There's so many complications that we need that training now before these Prabhupada disciples leave. Because if we take over after they leave, then who's going to train us and correct us? So this is a big theme, which especially His Grace Manoram Prabhu and some of the other leading GBCs are very much working on now, at how to engage the next generation, especially those born in the movement. Because there are so many. In England, we have about 200-300 Gurukulis who went to Gurukul, but only about 20 of them became serious devotee because they don't have the right environment to inspire them and engage them. And the friendships, and they don't have the right service to keep them engaged.
Yeah, that's
these are some thoughts.
Some very poignant thoughts with that as well. Conversations that happened in this house, conversation that started this project where I'm at, actually, how to think about and do those things in real time. But we could talk about that a lot. One thing as well, it's talking about having constant conversation about these things is important as well. All glories to Namras Prabhu and his platform. I like how they're looking into these things, though some of these things are controversial, but important nonetheless. Our seventh and last question, our sixth and very important question, actually. Sharing Krishna consciousness through writing. Congratulations on the release of your first book, 10 Mantras for Your Soul. What inspired you to write? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. What inspired you to write this book, and how do you see it complementing your other efforts like kirtans and Harinam in sharing Krishna consciousness or sharing Krishna bhakti to the world?
Thank you very much. I actually have this is not the actual book, but this was a pre-run just to test the paper, etc. So this is the book. So yeah, basically after I finished traveling full time with Harinam Ruci, I decided to a little bit slow down and do other things which I couldn't do while I was on the team. So one of them was I very much like the practice of yoga, asana. So I did a course in that to become yoga teacher, and then also I wanted to share Krishna consciousness through some of these channels like kirtan, through yoga, through teaching philosophy, etc. Obviously, if you're doing Harinam 7 days a week, you don't have time to plan, prepare, and to teach these kind of things because you have one service every day without change. So of course, I had to get into it slowly, and then now it's going quite well. Of course, there's unlimited scope, so I'm still trying to increase it more and more. So especially in the US, I teach a lot of the philosophy and mantra and kirtan, japa to all of these yoga groups. And I was also doing it in Greece because in Mexico, I made a contact who runs the yoga program in Greece. So then I've been twice in Greece to teach yoga groups there. And one of the people there, she said to me, "Oh, she said, you're doing this event on kirtan, but in Greece, we don't know much about kirtan. Maybe you should write a book about it." That's what she said to me. So then I said, "Oh yeah, it makes sense. Maybe I can do a book on like 10 main mantras. I don't want to write a huge book. I don't have so much time." So then we came up with this idea, 10 mantras for your soul. I don't know if it will be mirror imaged. Might be flipped.
Yeah. No.
So
yeah.
10 mantras for your soul, because it's a simple book. All I have to do is explain 10 mantras and give some context, and that's it. So it's a small book, 52-page book. So yeah, I did it. It didn't take that long. I did over 2 years, but obviously in terms of actually writing, it was just maybe 1 hour, every day or every couple of days. Because I've already been teaching this stuff, so I don't have to think about it much because it's stuff you teach regularly. So yeah, I decided to make this book, and now a lot of people already have pre-ordered it within the yoga community, devotees as well. This book is not aimed at devotees. I am actually making a book which is more for devotees and students of Indology because I have also a philosophy background academically. So one book is based on Mahabharata, but this one specifically is for yoga communities. 10 mantras for your soul. So it's very simple. Simple English. It's still very Shastric. I still give the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta and technicalities of our theology, but at the same time it's in less words and it's not too much because yoga students, they're not going to read a thick 500-page book. If it's a 50-page book, they can cover it in a couple hours.
Yeah,
so that's
something
the idea.
Simple and easy. Yeah.
And that way, when people chant, because it's explained, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that there's different types of yagya, and the tamasa yagya, or a yagya in the mode of ignorance, is when you do a sacrifice or yagya, but you don't do it with knowledge of why you're doing it. So you don't get full benefit. He says there's very little benefit in this life or the next. So when people chant mantra and they know the meaning behind it, then they make actually bhakti sukriti. Otherwise, it becomes only bhakti agyata sukriti, which means the power is there. Agyata sukriti is also powerful, but much less than if they're consciously chanting and they know the philosophy properly. So yeah, the yoga community needs this kind of books, this kind of knowledge, because they're doing a lot of kirtan, they're doing a lot of chanting, but they don't know what is Krishna. Is it just an idea? Is it just a story? Is he God? Is he a prophet? They don't know. So these kind of books and these kind of talks are very important to share with these people. That way their chanting actually goes deeper. Otherwise it will not really go very deep due to lack of not understanding the theology. Yeah. This book is it's not aimed for devotee audience primarily. It's aimed at a new people audience. But of course, devotees, just like Tribhuvanatha Prabhu, we made a book on his classes. I can actually show you. This is the first book I made. This is not my content, but I was the producer of this book. So it is consciousness that is searching. You can see he's in Africa. This is in a football stadium. So Tribhuvanatha Prabhu was doing such big festivals like in Malawi that he booked out a football stadium with a 20,000 people capacity, and he did a kirtan for like 4 hours. He gave like 1 hour lecture, dance, drama, and then gave everyone free books and free prasad. This is what's supposed to be going on in Africa, not only cultivating the Hindu community, but actually doing what Prabhupada said.
Last question, personal reflections and future aspirations. after years of traveling, teaching, and sharing Krishna consciousness, how has your personal relationship with Krishna evolved? Looking ahead, what do you hope to achieve in the next decade, both with the African bus tour and in your personal spiritual journey?
So very nice. So one thing I realized is that the more you give Krishna consciousness, then the more you get. Still, I'm trying to get. Still a long way to go. But at least I can say that by sharing Krishna consciousness and by, it's not that I can do anything, but we can just try our best and we can just pray to Krishna that we can preach, because you can give a 1 hour class to 500 people, but if nobody's heart changed, then we have to pray to Krishna that he empowers us, because it's not just external thing, but it's internal thing. So one thing I realized is that yes, by sharing of Krishna consciousness and doing these kind of services, it's a very fast track way to get taste. For instance, when I was 17, I was chanting japa, but I couldn't go beyond 8 rounds because I wasn't feeling any taste in japa. But as soon as I joined the Saturday Night Harinam team led by His Grace Parashuram Prabhu, who is a Shiksha disciple of Tribhunath Prabhu. In England, there are many people, they're his Shiksha disciples. They have a Vyasa Puja for him every year. It's called a remembrance program, but it's basically Vyasa Puja every year since 23 years. Even many gurus come to that program, Chandramouli Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj, etc. So what I've realized over time is that the more that you engage in preaching, then the more taste you get. So I was chanting 8 rounds, and then after some time, I joined the Saturday Night Harinam team, and then immediately I started getting more and more taste for japa. Then I realized why? Because Krishna is pleased when he sees that the individual soul is so caring and so loving that I want to give the highest thing to my brothers and sisters who are also suffering, which is to give Krishna consciousness. And just like when you do sadhana bhakti, we do not have ruci, because the form is there, and the form is supposed to be coming because we have taste, right? But in sadhana bhakti, we follow the form, and by following the form of raganuga bhakti, we develop raga, we develop taste, we develop attraction. It's like when we do deity worship, we may not have so much taste, we may not see the deity, but by serving the deity as if it's Krishna himself, then slowly, slowly that reveals itself in our mind. So in the same way, by preaching Krishna consciousness slowly, slowly, then that realization comes from within. So of course, I still have no realization, but at least I can say this process is definitely very powerful, and I've definitely had many powerful experiences. And although there's a long way to go, I'm very much enthused and enthusiastic and satisfied by the service of preaching. So I encourage everyone as much as possible to remember, Lord Chaitanya's instructions that whomever you go, whoever you meet, then share with them the science of Krishna consciousness. And that is the secret way, one of the secret ways of advancing in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes people say, do you have a hack, like a life hack? Or when you're driving, do you have a hack, like how can I get the quicker shortcut? So in the missionary movement of Lord Chaitanya, which is a Sankirtan missionary movement, the life hack or the hack to advance in Krishna consciousness is to follow what was Lord Chaitanya's most dear program, which is Jare Deko Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh, Amara Gyai Guru Haya Taro Edesh. Wherever you go, whomever you meet, instruct them in the science of Krishna consciousness. And in that way, you can become their instructing or their introductory guru, their shiksha guru of the people. And this is the nectar which we find. So very simple. Be Krishna conscious and spread Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your time. It's been very inspiring to have conversation with you. I've been waiting for this since May. I've been patiently
a long time,
yeah. But you've been really busy, eh? Been all over the place.
Yeah, since May, probably 30, 40 countries. So it's quite a busy program.
Yeah. All right. With that, we've come to the end of this conversation. I'm gonna